You're on.
Calling the meeting to order at 6:03. Ask if you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. So, I would entertain a motion on the minutes of March 20th, 2019.
Move them as written.
Second.
Corrections, changes?
Okay.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. I would like to sincerely welcome the members of Concord High School who have come down to give us a presentation on what's going on up at Concord. We have Megan Cox and David Andristakis. Did I get it right?
Very close. Andristakis.
Andristakis. I apologize. So I'll introduce everybody at the table so you guys know. Brian Grebe, assistant principal. Kristen Withy is our new principal. She wasn't here when you guys were here. Patty Sherman is our superintendent. I'm Jim Dealey. Zach Langloy and Nate Oxnard are board members. There are usually 5 board members here. We're waiting for one, and one is not going to be here. Gigi Klippa is a new board member. You might remember her as your assistant principal.
Yes.
So the floor is yours. If you guys want to ask us questions or if you have a presentation for us, you are welcome to start whenever you'd like.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Did I kick you out?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, please.
Can you hit the lights, Brian? Sorry, thank you.
As you just heard, I'm David Andristakis. I'm a sophomore at Concord High School. I went to elementary and middle school here at Deerfield. And right now at Concord High, I participate in the cross-country, indoor, and outdoor track teams. And it's pretty good actually to be back here in this library. I'm honored to be here tonight.
I'm Megan Cox. I also go to Concord High School. I'm a junior. I would consider myself like a pretty active student at Concord High. I play basketball there. I played there since freshman year. I graduated here in 2016. And it's also an honor to be back here.
Would you like me to do the slides for you?
Sure. Okay, so one thing we do at Concord High is this thing called Poetry Out Loud. So you read poems in classes, in your English classes. I did it this year. And so the lady in the middle of the yellow dress, that's Maggie Connolly. She was in the school competition, came second place in the regional competition. So she will be the she had to prepare like multiple poems to read out, to memorize during that competition. One of the quotes she said was that she was so honored to be a part of the enriching experience where I got to practice public speaking and memorization skills and gained a new appreciation for the poetry along the way. Many students participated in this competition during school competition, and then she advanced to the regional ones.
Around this time at Concord High School, you will see a wall of ducks on our main office window. As you go into the main entrance at Concord High, you'll see these ducks, and these ducks have written on them the names of our current seniors at Concord High School and universities and colleges that they have been accepted to, because around this time, they get all their acceptance letters to all the colleges that they apply to. As they're going into their 4th quarter of this year, this is also their final year at Concord High and the end of their high school career. So they leave this as their last mark before they head off. And since it's 4th quarter, these ducks will be taken down soon. But it serves as a good, send-off.
We also had the sports awards this past Monday. So seniors who have participated in 2 varsity sports during the year and have grades above a B+ will get honored and awarded by the NHIA and the NHADA Scholar Athlete Awards. So this year there were 32 students from Concord High that were accepted and honored for this, but it was the first year that they have done it. So
CRTC, also known as Concord Regional Technical Center, runs a health and science program. And recently, the health and science program got an opportunity to show off their medical skills and knowledge at the Host Estates Conference at the Geisel School of Medicine in Hanover, New Hampshire. This was on March 21st and the 22nd. CHS sent 60 students to this competition, and 32 of them qualified for nationals, which will be in Orlando, Florida this June. CHS is also hosting another blood drive. We held a blood drive earlier this year at our gymnasium, and at the gymnasium this upcoming May, we have another blood drive going on. If any of you are interested in donating blood, you need to contact Mrs. Bean. Her email is sbean@sau8.org. The date is May 8th, 2019.
NHS inductions. This is for the National Honor Society, and juniors will get accepted from the. They'll just get accepted from like teachers saying that they have good character, leadership, and service, and good grades as well. They have to have a 90 GPA and above to even apply for an application. The application process, you have to show how you have represented character, leadership, and service. And this year it will be tomorrow night, and well, I will be there because I got accepted just a few weeks ago. And this year there will also be 53 other students. So.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
March was also known as Music in Our Schools Month, and our high school musicians got to show off their musical skills in various concerts. On March the 11th, there was a band concert. On the 12th, there was a concert conducted by the orchestra. On the 20th, there was the chorus concert, and the jazz band held a concert on the 26th. These all led to really good performances and really great music by the high school musicians.
One of the clubs at our school is Be the Change Club. It's pretty much like a diversity club and getting all the people in Concord High closer to one another. This past month, they took a trip down to Timberlane High School and engaged with the students in multiple diversity trainings, like playing games and things like that. Their goal was to share the experience to help Timberlane celebrate diversity. So they started by playing with a game called Power Shuffle, which is a diversity exercise, which they help the students process how they feel about belonging to one group over the other. And they just played multiple games and had conversations with all the Timberlane students about diversity.
This month, Governor Sununu and the NH Executive Council decided to hold the first part of their monthly meeting at Concord High School on Wednesday, March 27th, allowing for many groups and classes of the school to present their accomplishments and activities to the council. It was a very successful event, and those who presented were asked to stay and answer further questions, and they got to hold further conversations with members of the council.
So that's all we have for this past month, but if you have any questions, comments, or feedback.
Could I jump first? Would you guys like to have seats and join us?
Sure. Thank you.
Feel like you don't need to stand up. Nate, you had a question?
Yeah, my question was back to the music month. You said music in the schools month.
Yeah, March is Music in Our Schools Month.
That's awesome. So, I know that some of the concerts happen at the Capital Arts Center? Do they all happen there, or is there an auditorium in school where some of them happen? I'm not sure where.
I know that the band, orchestra, and the choir, I think, were all at the Capitol Center, but I think the jazz band was at the auditorium.
There's an auditorium.
Yeah, there is an auditorium.
It's not big enough to fit like the whole student body, I would assume.
Oh, no.
You can fit like one grade in that
Yeah.
auditorium. Yeah. And so most of the bigger concerts are held at the Capitol Center for the Arts, and then some of the smaller ones are held at the auditorium. And that's where also all the plays go on and stuff.
At the auditorium?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
So, going back to your time here and then transitioning into Concord, how did you both find transitioning from a small school to Concord, and how was that experience for you? And have you felt like Concord accepted you as students pretty openly, or?
I was accepted pretty openly. It was a weird transition going from a small school to a big public high school, but my parents and my brother and sister both told me I was smart to take part in teams at Concord High. Because originally, at the end of 8th grade, I was thinking I wasn't going to continue to cross country, but then I did cross country, and it was like one of the best decisions I made because it helped me like socially mix in with the Concord kids by the time that the first day of school came around.
Yeah, I definitely agree with David because when you go into your freshman year, there's like the sports for during the fall and even during the winter because I didn't do a fall sport, but I had winter basketball. So, but during the summer, they do like a summer league for like a lot of the teams, and you get to play with like the kids that are going to CHS. So then you get to meet like all the upcoming freshmen and even upperclassmen. They'll all play on the same team as you. But in the beginning of freshman year, it was a little harder for me personally, like to fit in sort of with the rest of them. But then like it was very comfortable fast. Like I fit in perfectly fine.
So some.
I'm sorry, Jim, I have a question.
Sure.
Sorry I'm late, first of all.
It's all right.
That's Ken Heckman, by the way.
What other, besides sports, for those students that didn't play sports, what other opportunities were there and how did other people take advantage?
So the school offers a wide variety of clubs at the school. Like a couple weeks into the school year, they have the club fair where you see all these clubs. Like there's a gaming club, there's a bicycle club, there's even a running club, a tech club. Like there's a whole lot of clubs at Concord High. I could list a whole lot.
Yeah, like the Be the Change.
Yeah, Be the Change. Robotics, they just won a big title recently.
Yeah.
And then another opportunity Concord High offers is the theater productions, as those are a big part of Concord High culture as well.
But for incoming ninth graders, do any of those begin in, let's say, August? Or do they all wait until October to begin? So
Most of them wait until
Till
October
October,
to
yeah.
begin because of the club fair and things. But like if you have connections with upperclassmen
Yeah.
or people who are already in Concord High, then you can like talk to them and they'll help you get in like earlier over the summer with those meetings and stuff.
So, a question for you guys, and we don't want to grill you,
That's
but
right.
we really appreciate the feedback. Is there anything that you think this school or this board could do to help facilitate the transition? Did you feel like there was anything lacking in terms of what?
That was my next question.
I get to ask a question as well.
Stole my question. I want
Did
it
you
back.
feel like there was any kind of transitional lack or a bridge that could be added in to help?
That's a tough question.
It is. And if you don't have an answer and you want to think about it and come back next month,
Yeah.
you can do that.
I guess it was okay. I don't know. I found my way eventually. Like I talked to like people I knew from who graduated here like years before me, and they helped me a lot. So then like I know we did one tour of the high school.
Yeah, we did
for
one tour as well.
my year, and I feel like maybe another one would have been better, but I also feel like that also might have not helped a lot too because of it's such a big gap between when we did it. We did it in like December.
That's
I
when we
think.
did it too.
So it was harder to like,
Would it have been better if it were later in the year?
yeah, maybe.
I think like Runlet does their tour like beginning of June, end of May.
Okay.
But I agree with what she said.
Yeah.
I was pretty familiar with Concord High before. It was my sister and a bunch of friends of mine all went to Concord High School.
Okay.
So I was pretty well familiar with the school.
You guys have any questions for us or anything that we can answer for you?
Is there anything more you would want in the presentations or?
No, I think the main goal was a couple of Deerfield School Board members went up to the Concord School Board meeting and saw that there were high school students who were presenting and saying what was going on, and all of our kids go to Concord basically. So we thought it'd be great to ask if there were some kids who'd be willing to come and tell us what's going on, because after 8th grade we don't hear a ton. And I think it's a responsibility of this board to pay attention to what's going on and to hear from the people who are actually there. So that was.
Is this the same presentation? Thank you for the presentation. It's great, by the way. Is this the same presentation going to the Concord board?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
There's two other Concord representatives.
Yeah, there's 2 Concord representatives. We worked on the whole presentation with them.
That's great. Thank you.
They get name tags and have to sit through the whole meeting.
We won't do that to you. You don't want to. No, this was awesome. I mean, we really appreciate it. And getting feedback from Concord has always been a struggle for us. And any information or anything that you think is good for us to hear, we want to hear it.
Okay. We'll come back with more feedback
we'll come
about the
back.
transitioning.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
It'll take some time
I
to
have
look
one
at.
more question.
Sure.
And it actually kind of relates to that. Megan, I know you're a junior right now. Do you still get a sense, is it still Deerfield and Concord kids, or is it are you all Concord High kids? Culturally, have you blended by now? I'm sure you probably blended by now, but how long did that process take? I'm sure everybody's slightly different.
It was very fast. I feel like we blended all together like really quickly, and there's really no separation like, oh, you're a Deerfielder or you're a Concord person. Sometimes there's like jokes
There's
made
jokes,
like,
there's a lot.
oh, you're a Deerfielder, you have to drive like an hour to school, and
Which isn't a joke.
yeah.
Kind of a fact.
I always get like the joke stereotype of camo, but it's always
Yeah.
just a joke from my friends.
Yeah.
Do you guys, would you be willing to come back regularly and talk to us? Okay, and we really would love to have a conversation. So if you guys come with questions for us, or if you think of interesting things that you want approach-wise, we're open for a conversation. And I'd like to say thank you very much on behalf of the board, and we will move on from there. If you want to stay, you are welcome to stay, but
It's not that exciting.
no, they have time to like study halls and stuff. Like, get most of it done up there.
I'll probably stay for a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll see.
Okay.
I'll stay till my mom.
All right. Why don't we move on to public comments? Nothing? Nothing. All right. Agenda review.
Yes, you have 5 consent items.
Okay.
And under number 10 for appointments and resignations, you have 2.
Is there anything anyone would like to change or add to the agenda? Mr. Oxnard.
Two things. One was number A, because there's information about the DCS student representative list that we missed.
We were going to see if they came.
Okay. Is that
We don't need to organize a search party, do we?
No. I was going to let it go because no one came.
okay? Maybe next time that'd be great. And then number 2, I have a question about this. It's a goal setting thing. So it could be, I don't know where it fits in. It could be wait till informational items. There was something on the agenda last meeting about goals, and I would like to bring up something so it can wait until I don't have a place where I want to go, but
You want to put it under policy or continuing business?
sure, continuing business would be great.
So add goals going forward.
Sure. After building committee at the end.
Yeah. Do we have an extra packet by any chance?
Yes.
You're going to stay. This was. Oh, yeah. Oh, hold on just a second. Just got to make sure that there's nothing in there. Isn't.
There's some stuff in there, so.
Oh, there might be some
Yeah.
stuff.
There is.
You can pull the agenda off.
Yeah.
I will pull the agenda off.
There's some stuff too.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I have have one other thing too.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to discuss, the last time the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission was here, she sent an email offering services to help with the CIP. I don't know if you
Yeah, I would like to.
want to discuss that.
Why don't we put that under the building committee
Okay.
CIP proposal?
No, this is an agenda review.
We actually have to say what we're talking about before we move to approve. Anything else for the agenda, or are we good? Okay. So,
I'm sorry.
yes?
I have a brief 50,000-foot view from the LED survey as a
Informational?
precursor of the more detailed stuff.
LED press under informational items?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be just a quick.
All right. Moving forward. Consent items, 5. Are we going to have
And
to?
I didn't count some items that Brian has for you in consent. I don't know if you want that in consent or as part of the principal's report, so we can
Why don't
decide that as
we do,
go.
since we already amended the agenda, do it as the principal's report?
Okay.
So we have,
You have some leave requests that you may want to discuss in non-public before you vote on those. So you can move a couple of those. You have a request for tree removals on the border of your property that I think Ms. Poole is hoping to get a decision on tonight.
all right, so I can speak to the tree removal first, if that's okay. So I went out to the property, and this is dealing with a number of large pine trees that are along the border of the property that's the town bought for a potential high school spot years and years ago, the corner of 43 and 107. They are literally on the stone wall, the ones that she had marked. It really didn't seem like an issue, and they were all bull pines. So the type that are usually front-loaded and will break. So my advice would be it's okay for them to do it. As long as they are dealing with someone who is insured. So I'll make a motion that we approve the removal of the trees along the property line
And they're cleaned up.
and that all debris is cleaned and that the contractor is insured and we get a copy of the certificate of insurance. Any further discussion on trees? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
We also have for you some information on the Granite Coast landscapings. As you know, they've been, I think it's their third year.
They've done great.
I think they've done 3.
Yeah.
And we've been extremely pleased with their work. I think they've gotten to know our property really, really well and have been very responsive in both their customer service and their billing department. They are interested in a 3-year contract if the board so chooses. We did take a look at your policy, which does allow the board, there are 2 provisions. One allows the board to award a contract to someone who's consistently been the low bidder. And there's also another provision that you can waive the formal bid requirements if you so choose. So we have the proposal and
Do you
it's
have
up to you.
copies of the proposal?
It was put in
Or at least
the drive. I don't think she made copies,
I
but I
looked
have
at
one.
it.
I didn't see anything in the drive.
Yeah, it was in the drive later today.
Yeah, I got it later in the day
And
today.
did we not go to bid on this? So we did not go to
Did
bid.
Mike talk to other people? I don't think he did. We received this from our current company.
So, do you know how much more it was than previously?
This is, I think, about $1,000 more than
Last year's?
last year's, yeah.
And no increase over 3 years if you do the 3-year.
So it's fixed for 3 years, so if we have defaults and whatnot, it carries without any issues. I mean, everybody's happy and it looks good and the ground seemed to look better and
They come every time we call, like without hesitation, like for the upper field and everything.
Oh, that's right, because he's been doing all the repairs and all that stuff as well.
I
And they don't hesitate to come.
I have absolutely no problem at all with the work job they've been doing. I do have a little bit of problem that we aren't going to bid. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. See ya. I like in terms of just protocol. I think that they've done a wonderful job, but not going to bid on a 3-year.
What if we ask them if they continue at the price we've had, if they do it at the same price that we've been using, last year's contracted price?
How many responses did we get last time we went to bed?
2 or 3?
We had 3, I think. I think we
We
had.
had, well, let me phrase that. We had 5, but 2 of them didn't show up at the SAU office. They showed up here, if I recall correctly. So we only had 3 responsive bidders.
Official.
And one of them was way out in left field price-wise. And the other one was probably within, it was similar realm of numbers, I guess. I don't want to give an exact value in front of me, but it was a similar realm of numbers.
That was 3 years ago?
It was 3 years ago.
I'm just wondering if we might be in the same situation that we are with transportation, where we're gonna get a very limited pool anyways. I don't know, we might get a bunch more, I don't know what that market is like.
Can the administration explain why it wasn't put out to bid?
This is what Granite Coast can do, and if we want to put an RFP out for RFP, this is the information. He got the information for us to put it out for bid. This is what,
So we can write a scope of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was his intent, right?
If we want to.
And the contract is up at the end of June?
Correct.
All right. I feel like if we're gonna do it, we should do an RFP, because that, we created a policy specifically to, if we could create a scope of work off of it. I have absolutely no problem at all with these guys, but I feel like for transparency purposes, we should create an RFP and send it out. I don't know if the rest of the board feels the same way or not.
Yes, I would agree with that.
If the price was the same, I would say continue on. I'd probably feel better. If it was the same number that we paid last year,
Right.
then to me it's an extension of an existing contract. I'd feel fine with it. So that might be my only thought is, do you want to say, if you want to use last year's number?
Well, the other thing about going out to bid is we might find that we might get like three bids that are like $3,000 higher than what we were paying last year. So this might look like a real bargain. Due diligence wise, I think it is the right thing to do. We don't have to take any of those other bidders.
No, I mean,
We can go, oh, well, no, we're gonna,
Right.
But
Just in terms of process, we created a policy for anything over $5,000 and or 10 to go out to bid. So if someone wants to make the case why we shouldn't, I'm willing to hear it, but I don't know why we shouldn't.
I can make an argument for it either way.
of course you can.
Just saying, I can make an argument for it either way, but
I think the responsible thing to do is go with the policy and do it that way.
either way you're going with the policy, but.
Well, it keeps everybody honest.
I don't see any reason not to do
So
it.
then Mike needs to use this as a template to draw up a scope of work, right? And so it's in there as a scope, basically, what should be done. And then it needs to go out to bid like now. So we can't wait 3 weeks to circle back around to this and then have it, be out to bid for, what's the normal cycle, like 2 weeks? From published to.
I think we can do whatever we want in terms of so if they could get it out and finish by our next our next meeting is a work session. So by the May meeting, because next meeting is buildings meeting basically, so.
Yeah, we would need
They can have
responses.
proposals by then. And I'm not saying in any way do I think Granite Coast is not doing a great job. I just think in terms of our protocol, we shouldn't, unless there's a distinct reason why we shouldn't follow policy, we should follow policy.
The other side of that is I'd like the idea of writing it for a 3-year contract at this point.
Right.
Not having to revisit it.
Do you want us to advertise it 3 years at a fixed price?
My
Because
fear,
otherwise it can't go in the default.
my fear with 3 years at a fixed price is that we end up with the third year price
Mhm.
for the first and second year. That's my fear with a 3-year fixed price. And looking at the number here does not look inflated by any means.
No.
For that, but my fear of what a regular contractor is gonna be is they're gonna have to project out, they're gonna be projecting out 3 years and they don't know what fuel's gonna cost and insurance is gonna cost and everything else. And so they're not gonna take an average number across all 3 years. They're just gonna say, okay, well, I know I need to be X here in 3 years, so I guess that's my fear.
So
But I don't wanna revisit this.
if it's out to bid, then they would all be bidding against each other.
Yep.
Right. No, 100%.
And we, like I said, I think for the transparency purpose of how we manage the funds, we should follow the protocol. And I'm not hearing a lot of people say, don't do that. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, is there a question? Are we asking for a 3-year? Is that the question? Are we asking for a 3-year contract or not?
3 years sounds fantastic.
No need to visit this every year.
No.
It's mowing and weeding and
Yep.
trimming and, so a 3-year to me is fine.
Thank you. So that's 2 of the 3 things, or 5 things, excuse me.
Yeah, and then I think the other 3 are staff items, so
All right.
we can wait until after non-public.
3. All right. Public. PTO report. Nope. All right. Excellent. Staff report, there's no staff report this time. So,
This is going to.
executive board report.
There has not been an executive board meeting since.
We are on to principals report.
Wow, way to go.
We're tearing through this.
By 6:35.
This will slow us down.
Well, first on the agenda is Brian to report on his NELMS trip with the middle school.
Yeah, so we went to the NELMS conference in Providence, Rhode Island. There was 8 of us total. And after talking to several people there, they were very taken back that we were able to send 8 people. So thank you to the board for allowing that to happen. Overall, the conference was a good conference for everybody. It kind of awoke some thoughts and ideas into people who have been teaching a long time and brought some aha moments to teachers who are new in our building. So
I was doing a walkthrough on a teacher who immediately incorporated an idea that she had gotten at a workshop. So, and said, because I was sitting there, said, I learned that at the workshop. So it is good to go and refresh and get some cool ideas.
Yeah, and the keynote speaker for the first day was awesome. She just, was one of those people who just grabs onto the audience and doesn't let go. So that was rejuvenating and excellent to see. So that was a great start to the day. Our problem of practice was to define what the middle school is. We're actually meeting this Tuesday to come back. Everyone had a task to complete since then, and we're meeting next Tuesday to look at our 3-year plan, which we will be presenting to you guys on May 1st. And so, overall, it was just a good experience. It was nice to step back as an administrator and kind of get myself back into the mundane, like technicalities and everything that goes on in the middle school. So, and kind of see it from their viewpoint. So that was nice on my part too. So my only recommendation would be to stay 2 nights, because getting up at 4 a.m. and traveling to Providence and Boston traffic is not the best way to spend your day. So by 3 o'clock, we're all pretty dragging. So,
Would it, is it, I've never been, I've heard about it, but I've never been. Is it the kind of thing that it's different enough every year that it makes sense to go repeatedly?
yes,
or
every
going
year
once
is a
in
different theme.
Okay.
So this year's theme was more around, I guess you could say, trauma, and looking at trauma, and also just looking at, trying to find the word, social emotional, and connecting the two, and realizing that a little trauma for what we might not see as a trauma for a middle schooler or even a younger student can affect their life greatly and have profound effects. So yeah, every year is different, and most of the presentations are based around that. Some presentations go off tangent a little bit, but most of them have to follow that similar theme. So every year it would be worth going. I wouldn't bring the same group. It would be good to split it up and have another group come. So, but I think it's going to help the middle school as a whole. Right? So,
Excellent.
Brian and I were able to attend some persuasive speeches in 3rd grade, and now they want to wear hats in the building. So, when can we have our answer? They wanted to know. And Mr. Ferdinand had to explain that this was just we're just a dry run. We're just trying. We're just starting out with persuasive speeches, but then we gave them some feedback in the end. It was a lot of fun. We also were able to attend a 1st grade publishing party where we had experts ranging from getting ready for school every day to making slime and even a roller skater. I said, do you roller skate in your house? And she said, yeah. And she explained this whole thing and go around the corner and the big pole in the middle. And yep, so there's some roller skating going on if you're interested in that old-fashioned good old time. Our 2nd graders went on a field trip just yesterday. They went to Portsmouth to see Henry and Mudge. And yesterday was also Wear Blue for World Autism Day, which our peer-to-peer magnet spearheaded, the whole school, pretty much the whole school was in blue yesterday.
Yeah, it was awesome.
All the staff and a couple of our students with autism went around and gave out stickers for everybody, World Autism Awareness Day, and they had made ribbons out of puzzle fabric and handed those out to the staff. So it was a great day to celebrate the unique talents of those with autism. We are doing some New Hampshire SAS test preparation work. Heidi Cook and Erica and Kristen Davis, Liz McGovern, they're all working with the middle school and the elementary school, just trying to get our 3rd graders ready for taking this test for the first time, embedding some important explicit instruction as to how do you answer a reading question with a computer in front of you and without the word because to start off your sentence. So they've been using their WIN block as well as math time and ELA time. And like I said, they're embedding the instruction right in the work that they would have already been doing, trying to teach our kids about the vocabulary words you'll see on the SAS test. And so they're taking it pretty seriously. And we had that was what our PD day was today, is firming up some of those things and maybe getting some energy going for, doing some good work. We talked about having our older kids write our younger kids a little letter, encouraging them, tips that they could use while they're taking the test. We talked about having a prep rally where we, our Deerfield Honor Society kids and our student council, we do a cheer and just get excited for the test and root them on with a pep talk on doing your best during the testing season.
Sorry, what grades are they? Just a reminder, 3rd grade?
3rd through 8th, yep.
Every grade does, 3rd through 8th.
Yes.
Great.
And 5th and 8th take the science test as well. So 3rd through 8th do math and ELA.
Great, thank you.
The testing will begin after April vacation. Brian worked hard on putting a schedule together and making sure that we have all the grade levels where they need to be, and making sure 6th grade wasn't the week that when they were away at science camp and that type of thing. Our DCS basketball team had their banquet last night. Our baseball and softball practices are in full swing, as well as full cast rehearsals and set building that's still going on for Shrek. I believe finalizing, the set building is being finalized the weekend right before April vacation, April 13th and 14th that weekend. And we also our girls on the run teams we have 2 teams, and we have, I think, 20 girls on both of those teams, so that's exciting for our girls here.
What grades are those?
Third and up, third
Third through fifth,
through fifth.
I think so.
Some upcoming events. Tomorrow we have our first track practice, and also our band will be going to the Fisher Cat Stadium for their opening day. So our band will be performing. That's tomorrow. And this Friday, our 7th grade will be a 7th grade advisory day. Our 7th graders are going to go to the Works in Somersworth, and our 8th graders will have Magnet Day, and we'll be going into Manchester to go bowling and go to the food court at the Mall of New Hampshire. Does it get better? I had to break Brian's heart and tell him there is no Taco Bell there, but there is an Arby's. So. What's 6th grade doing for the day?
6th grade they're on campus all day.
Okay, doing their activities, okay. Since we don't have a board meeting except for the Space Needs meeting on April 15th, I just wanted to fill you in on some things that will be going on. Will be a social activism dance on Friday, the 12th of April. We have a robotics competition. I think it's at Pembroke Academy. On Sunday, April 14th. We will be having an author-artist visit on April 16th. His name is Ralph Masiello. He does how to draw books, and our teachers use his books all the time. So he will be coming for a visit on Tuesday the 16th. Our first DCS softball game will be on Tuesday the 16th, again at Barrington against Barrington, and our Shrek the Musical performance is Wednesday the 17th and Thursday the 18th. And don't forget about dinner before the show, right? Mm-hmm. April vacation will be during this time between now and the next meeting. And one of the things that Mike has arranged for the stage curtain to be cleaned. And when we had our visit from the DOE, our school facility visit, she insisted that we get it sprayed to be fire retardant. So he's made those arrangements. Monday and Tuesday of April vacation, somebody will be out to clean it and do the work on making sure it's fire retardant. Yep.
Go ahead.
Are we typically refinish the gym floor during, is it February, April?
Usually since summertime.
I thought we always did it during one school vacation.
It was during a school vacation.
Yeah.
Last year, it switched to summer.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's on a summer schedule
Yeah,
now?
that was a result. One gentleman used to do that. That was his kind of like time frame. Unfortunately, he passed away, so we had to go to a different company that does it.
So that's, okay. I was just thinking of historical stuff.
We will have our book fair starting after April vacation, Monday the 29th of April it will start. The DARE program will have a graduation on Tuesday the 30th of April. Parents with 5th graders will get information about that. It'll be during the day around 1 o'clock here at the school. And the school-wide art show will be on Tuesday the 30th of April from 5 to 7. Now that's a big hit here. As of today, we have no updated kindergarten numbers. We are holding at 40 students. 20 of them are DCS preschoolers, and we have set our kindergarten visitation day for Friday, May 31st, and I am told that many times we get some more registrations on that day, parents who come out for the visitation day. And then I have updated enrollment. Unfortunately, we lost a 4th grader and a 7th grader. They've moved, so our current number is 538. But we do have 2 2nd graders moving in end of April, and I think we have a 5th grader coming as well. So they're just up and down right now. So that's it.
Back to Brian.
Oh, and now it's Brian's turn.
Before he starts,
Yeah.
just informational, the Deerfield Cooperative Preschool has closed.
We got some information.
But there's a new one opening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the assistant teacher from the Deerfield Cooperative Preschool is going to open up her own preschool in town.
Good for her.
So
Same location?
no, I think she's going to put it on her property. She's at the bottom of 43, but I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's the initial.
Is it gonna be a cooperative, continue
No,
to be
it's going to
cooperative?
be not non-co-op. At least, and this is I'm speaking for, but I think just a traditional model. So if people call, there is something else coming. Yeah, because otherwise that
We do have a waiting
potentially be
list.
a pain. Her name is Lori. I don't know her last name. I get it. You'll figure it out. Brian, what do you have for us?
All right. So as you know, we're on the default mode this year, and prior to this, we've had for technology, they had a time frame for updating tech, everything tech, not the best of tech, but from Windows applications to replacing laptops to firewalls and everything in between. So Brooke Petrocelli and Mr. Layton came to us with some numbers, looking to see if the board would entertain us
Thank you, sir.
purchasing some items for this school year. Some of the bigger items, the first few items are more licenses and upgrades. But as you go down, you'll notice, for instance, number 4, those are just, again, updates for Windows platforms, so we can continue using some of our products.
We're still running Windows 7?
On some computers, yes. So, yeah.
It ain't no bell.
I would say on about 110 of them.
works.
Yes.
It's not supported anymore.
No, I know, it's not for much longer, but it still works.
And then number 5, we currently have on the outside of the building about 4 blind spots that we cannot see with the cameras, and we have 1 blind spot in the building, which is in the gym. So we're looking to see if we can get that upgraded as well. It would be the same company that came out. It wouldn't have to do the same kind of scope of work. A lot of it is just going into some of the existing cameras outside and putting either 2 cameras or more of a fisheye type lens in there. So kind of swapping out some things, and this would greatly help, especially in the back right now. Any kind of playground incidents or anything like that, I'm limited on what I can see, and as the trees grow in, I can't see the playground at all. So the idea is to move that camera over to the corner of the building. And he said he also believes that would allow us to see anything that goes on in the upper field. So on the weekend or anything happening on the upper field, you can zoom in. It's pretty crazy how far you can zoom in. So if there was any injury or
Someone decided to go drive around on the field again.
Exactly. So we might be able to narrow down our search for that.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Get a better description. Number 6. Brooke Petrocelli is looking to see an update on some of the laptops she's using for the STEM program, and she's hoping to update. She's using that for everything from robotics to coding to Minecraft. So essentially, just trying to get a little bit higher rated computers and that can last a little bit longer, keep up with what these students are doing. Number 7, our current 6th grade are using 5-year-old Chromebooks. And if you're familiar with Chromebooks, they usually have a 3 to 5 year lifespan. But when you put them in the hands of middle schoolers, that lifespan goes down drastically. So that's why that one's on there. And the last one is a jar system. Essentially, right now we have all the middle school computers in the hallways in carts. The problem with that is, again, middle schoolers being middle schoolers, a lot of them put their Chromebook in there, they don't plug it in, or other kids are messing with their friends and they unplug them. So when the kids come in the next day, their Chromebook is dead. And then some kids are just not putting them in there at all. So the idea is to move those, replace those carts with, which have been modified. They're not even like actual, they're not, the thing we're looking for is something similar to that. So they'd be in the classroom, the homeroom teachers would be able to keep track of who didn't plug in their computer, whose computer is missing, things of that nature. So it puts a little bit more accountability on the students and the teachers.
Will that start clearing some of that additional stuff out of the hallways as well?
Absolutely.
Or will
All those, everything around the lockers, all those carts would go.
Okay.
So my only question is the Dell laptops. Are those going to take the place of desktops, or?
Those would be replacing some of the laptops that she is currently using for the STEM program. So, and that kind of goes along with what we're kind of our vision going forward for the STEM program here.
Is the, sorry.
Yeah.
We can't drive the STEM stuff through the Chromebooks?
Probably not coding.
Probably you can't install stuff on a Chromebook.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, you can't.
There's some sort of software that has to be on
On a physical.
yeah, you can't store stuff on a Chromebook.
Okay, all right. So that's the question.
Yeah, that's.
When you say the STEM program, does that mean that you were talking about the 8 o'clock to 2:30 day, or are we talking about the extension after school, which is
Both,
the
essentially.
extracurricular?
She's doing things right now during RTI and core more time, and then she's looking to branch out in the afternoon as well as she's getting more and more comfortable here. So she would like to grow the program, so we're just trying to support her with that. As we know, she took on a large shoes to fill, so she's doing a good job getting that, but she also wants to expand what she's capable of doing. So.
She did send an email saying we have the grant money as well from the last board meeting that I presented, but it limits us to our new technology. You can only use a certain percentage of that money for that. Most of the money has to be spent on the actual program and the things that we need for that. She said, I also want to extend the STEM lab to younger kids, and that the grant won't fund infrastructure, which would include laptops. We'd also like to get the latest in Minecraft, as it has endless STEAM and STEM activities for all kids of all ages, and it only runs on a laptop.
Okay.
So having the laptops would open the doors to many things, including augmented and virtual reality, which is already having an impact on education. So that's what she had to say about that.
How does the I think I'm in favor of a lot of this, but I guess one thing that I want to have in the back of my head is the idea that having more and more of our students' time during the school day looking at a screen is not what I would say one of my goals would be. So I guess my question is, as we go further into doing this, we're replacing things, I get that, but are we being cognizant of the idea that, you know, a lot of our students are spending a lot of screen time at home as it is, and their day here shouldn't be 6 hours of screen time also. So how are we, to what extent do we keep that in the back of our heads as we're actually, you know, part of the planning process when we are thinking about what classrooms need and what different.
Yeah, and I think your thought process it goes along with what the teachers are thinking too. We've had those discussions before, and they do a pretty good job balancing that out. You go into especially like science rooms, they use them both. There's days where 3 or 4 days in a row where they won't even go on their computers. Same thing with ELA and math. So and social studies. Social studies probably uses it the least amount right now. So I think there's a pretty decent balance of what is traditional books and note taking and textbooks and balancing it with the Chromebooks. So.
Do you, in your high school experience, do you have to maintain the same balance at the high school level? Or?
I would say it's a little bit easier for me because I do science, that it's easy to sort of do. I'm doing stuff all the time I would say more often I'm not using the computers, but it is a tool that I do use sometimes. But at the same time, I have freshmen, and I hear that in the middle school, it's getting to this point where it's easier to. There's so many tools that you can have on a screen that kids are using them more and more, and then it does get to be. It's a concern that I've heard of voiced by parents at my district as well. So I want to just be aware of that as we go forward.
All right. So keep it in mind. The total is 37,000. Could you slide that over?
928.
37,928. And 2 cents.
You know,
Forget
is
to do so.
Bob. Don't forget that too, Rosie.
Is there a motion to move that, or would you like to deal with individual lines, or what is the approach the board would like to take?
We have
Yeah, what's the room in our,
lines, do we have?
Yeah, so your current projections are 467. That's without closing any POs. So right now, Amber is projecting, if you had 5,000 in math supplies, she's projecting 5,000 in math supplies. Once we start to close out POs and say, okay, we're done spending, you'll get more freed up. But right now, you have 467, the majority of which is special education. We had a couple of pretty high expense items that didn't, for reasons I won't expand on, but we didn't need those funds.
Do we have money in the technology
Trust?
trust? You guys a generator turning off?
Yeah.
Possibly. We have money in the technology trust. Should we be looking at that for a portion of this?
I mean, you're certainly welcome to do that. We've tried to have a balance in there that would be like a catastrophic failure, like a server or something that we wouldn't have in the budget. I think right now, part of this is innovative, and part of it is from, like Brian said, the default budget of us not being behind in our replacement cycle. Working on 5-year Chromebooks is like a wing and a prayer that they're holding on at this point. And then like the Windows 7, that's the kind of stuff that we haven't been able to do, and it's pretty dire.
Should things like the cameras, item 5, should that be coming out of the facilities repair trust as opposed to out of the general budget?
it's not a repair.
Oh, that's right, it's that lack.
We'd have to wait until after July for the new one.
We have the other one.
We were just made aware that we think that there's going to be in the governor's infrastructure fund. They did have us on a wait list, and there's a small chance that they could open up more funds. If they did, that would the $12,000 that we just talked about for the emergency radios was 12.
18. They took about the
We did
one.
reimburse.
If we got that, then that would free up even more funds. But there's no way to know that because there's quite a waiting list.
Is it the kind of thing that if we do, because we've already approved the expenditure, they would actually give us credit towards it? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you spend it and we would get it.
They're not
Or
going to be
you
like,
spend
oh, you
it-
already said you had
No,
it. so
no,
fine."
We're on a wait list.
Oh, you don't need it now.
You don't need it.
We
You
would
already
fill
had
out
that
the
money.
affidavit that she has for you to sign tonight for the other stuff that would say, yep, we did it, here's the receipts showing that we did it, and then we would get reimbursed.
Okay.
That was for the cameras.
Yeah, because we're already,
So what is the wish of the board?
We don't want to get further behind, so I'll move that we approve the $37,928.02 for all of the items on the list.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Oxnard.
Back to number 6 again. I'm balancing the idea. I like the idea of looking ahead and opening up opportunity. And these are the laptops for this STEM program. I'm balancing that with the other comment you made about how middle schoolers have a tendency to not necessarily treat these things, 100% well all the time because they have a lot of things in their minds. And I guess my question is, if Brooke is looking to expand, like you were saying, that's exciting. To what extent are we thinking about this after-school time as a curricular time, and maybe rolling in things like competencies into these sort of afternoon activities? And I don't really know how. Maybe this is part of a larger vision, but does the after-school time count kind of as part of the school day, or is that more of a
Like homework?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Wow, we
or
just
more
went
of a
really big.
co-curricular.
Or, is this part of the school day we're talking about, or is this sort of a separate thing? Which we want to support extracurricular things as well. But do you know whether she's fleshed that out? What her plans are to any extent?
No, I think she just wants to help grow the enrichment program and use this as part of that piece of that puzzle.
And grow the vision of what we're hoping, what we're hoping for here. Yeah, with STEM and STEAM.
And those are going to be mobile, so those would be carded, I assume?
Yeah, those would be used
In her care.
in her care
Yeah.
within the presence of her.
Right.
Those aren't. Yeah, those wouldn't be going.
Students wouldn't be walking around with
No,
those doing that.
and
Okay.
they eat in here.
They're literally the same price as the Chromebooks.
Well,
That's true, actually. No, they're
No.
they're
The $399 versus $119.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's say 400 was shipping. 400.
Yeah, $400 to get the Chromebooks here.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
Do we have the cards for those? I mean, we're looking at those racks for the Chromebooks. Do we have cards for those laptops? Or is
Yeah,
that
we would
some-
just replace the ones that we have in the middle school. She would store.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll recycle them into
Yeah.
that purpose? Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There you go.
All right, I got two more things for you. One is for special education. So Bob and Lisa, if you're not familiar with Red Cats. Red Cats are a receiver and amplifier. And we currently have, I think, 2 in the building. Normally,
Has 6, we have 6.
we have 6.
That's what it says here.
Oh, okay, we purchased more. They are looking to purchase a few more. And the bottom one is currently our special ed personnel are required to fill out numerous evaluations. As you can imagine, given our space needs and the tightness of our quarters, a lot of the times there are multiple people in the room, so when they're filling out information, there's already another case manager in the room doing groups and lessons and that thing.
Because
So
they have to use a desktop.
they have to use a desktop. So they're looking to get these 15 refurbished Dell computers so that they can kind of go and find a quiet spot in the building. Wherever they can
Are
find
they
one.
the same ones we just
I
bought?
was gonna say, why are we buying
6.
refurbs for $400 when we're buying new ones for $399?
I think
That's solid state drive. I mean, hold on, let's compare.
Yeah, you'll have to.
Let's get techie.
All right, I'm just gonna sit here while Jim does that, because
Go ahead.
that's his thing.
Yeah,
they're $399, the same.
they're the same things.
All right, are the other ones?
You look at the bill, E6440s. Same price. He just rounded up.
So are the ones we just approved refurbs?
No. How have I not gotten there yet? Thank you.
It's the same quote, it's the same quote number, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it is.
Same quote number.
Actually, that last page is 20. That's the one.
So he just wants an additional 15.
For
So-
this,
so the-
specifically for special.
So the ones that we approved are refurbs, presumably.
It should say it in the quote.
They say Second
Microsoft
Life.
10
Second Life,
refurbish
yeah.
or PC refurbish or computer.
So I'm not an IT guy by any means, but are you okay with that, Jim?
They're probably coming off a business lease, and it's probably way more bang for your buck.
Okay.
Bob would not mess around.
No, and
No,
it's the
Bob,
kind of thing, like a Dell isn't gonna hold a lot of value, so it's probably, we're buying them for $400, it was probably a $1,200 computer or something like that.
The Red Cats too are normally hundreds of dollars, but Bob found, of course, refurbished Red Cats that are selling for $34.99. They are brand new. They're up to $600, $700 a piece.
Can the special ed personnel, must they work on a PC or can they work on a Chromebook?
No, they can't do
No.
Nessus on a Chromebook or anything like that.
Okay, because none of it can be cloud-based.
Right.
Okay. And we don't provide them with computers at this point?
They have desktops that's what Lisa's saying. They have desktops in the classroom like these, but many times they'll be trying to work on their desktop and another teacher will come in and work with a small group and it can be distracting
They
and
don't really have office space. in
Yeah.
other words.
So why don't we assign a laptop to?
Right, yeah, there can't be 15 case managers in this building. So who's actually
Between related services, speech and language, and OTs and case managers, and yeah, it adds up.
So that's what these 15 devices are for, is to
10,
assign
right?
15.
15.
Up to 15
I'm way
devices.
off on my numbers.
Yeah,
For
up to
Windows 10.
15.
So we're another $6,500.
and can this come from the special ed line?
All right, anybody got a motion?
I make a
Special ed
motion,
cost.
I make a motion that we fund
How much?
for the total of $6,426 as listed on
Second.
the request.
Discussion.
This will come out of special ed lines.
Hearing none, all in,
Is that up to 6426? What is the up to for, or do we know that we need 15? And
we're approving 6426. If he spends less, he spends less. All in favor? Aye.
Alright, and I got one more.
Dun, 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 dun.
We're buying the pizza tonight.
We won't need it, we'll be out of here. So this is not tech related.
Is this ended?
I've been looking for one of these.
So if you drop your kids off in the back, or you happen to be in the back of the school, you'll notice our ancient basketball hoop is no longer alive.
What happened?
It just,
It was hanging.
yeah,
I thought some really tall guy, like,
yeah, the back, it just cracked. I don't even know how long
blue
it's been
painted
there.
telephone pole didn't last?
What's that? No, the telephone pole's fine, it's the board
The,
and
the
so,
backboard and the hoop.
yeah, so,
Peach basket it is.
Still there.
All right.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
So we are looking to replace that with the same, this Hercules diamond basketball system, backboard and setup is exactly the same one we have, that's the new one out there.
That's heavy.
Yes.
That was fun to put in.
So,
That's heavy.
We might need you again.
yeah,
There's also a lot of concrete underneath that one.
Yeah.
yes.
Who
So,
dug that? Was that you who dug that with your crazy excavator?
We had it dug because it's dig safe stuff and I didn't want to deal with it. But Alan O'Neill and I came here on a Saturday.
I was here too. I was in
Well,
the back of your truck.
The concrete mixing day was 2 weeks before.
Oh, there you go.
That one, there's a pallet of concrete underneath that thing.
so we're looking to do the same thing.
Yeah.
The board itself, and I apologize, they didn't have the acrylic in when I did this. So it's $180. We don't want a glass backboard. So that price where it says plus 180, that's it wouldn't allow me to do that in the cart when it said it was on back order. So that, and then we also had two proposals for installing it. The first one was from Granite Coast Industries, and the bottom one, I apologize for it's all scribbled in pen. That is from across the street. Matt Fisher was willing to come in for a price of $535 to have it, and then plus the manpower. So Zach, you can help out with concrete again. So
Granite Coast Industries will come in and for 14, actually it'll be more than that. They'll come and they'll basically take the pole out, pour the concrete, to do the dig safe stuff. But Mike can get Matt Fisher to come and do that as well, but then he'll need some manpower to get the pole. Matt will take the pole and remove the pole, but we gotta get the new pole in.
Oh, everybody's looking at me.
It was so much fun last time.
yeah, you have some experience in this.
The hardest was like lining up the bolts through the hoop.
So here's what I know. I know I'm going to be putting something like this at my house, and I've already decided I'm paying somebody to do it at my house.
Yes, I don't blame you.
The budget here is bigger than the one I have at home.
So that was the first thing in that this packet. Second thing is looking to do two 15-foot benches for the upper field. If you have sat on those benches, you will know why we're looking to replace them. They're at the point where they're just starting to fall apart, and they're very, very heavy, and we cannot move them. So that's the point of those. And the last thing is, as we mentioned in the fall, our soccer goals are on their last legs. They've been pretty much welded to the point where they can't be welded again. And we also come to find out that we are the only, I shouldn't say only, I'm almost positive we're the only school in the Southeast League that is using a smaller goal than all the other schools. We are using a U12 goal, and technically, as a middle school, we should be using a professional goal, which is 18 by 24. So, and working with Mark West, our PE teacher, who is very involved with soccer, we kind of narrowed down what would be the best value, most bang for our buck, and the longevity of it. So that's why these were chosen. These are the ones with the wheels, so there's no need to
Tip.
there's no
rack
cracking.
and- yeah.
Exactly. That's essentially why our goals are the way they are now. So.
Can we use the other goals elsewhere, or can we put them down in the lower field?
Give them to Parks and Rec. And
Yeah,
they can use
we
them.
can definitely find a home for them.
Parks and Recs, yeah, I just hate to see them get, there's still a little bit of fight left in them.
Yeah, one there's some fight in it. I don't know. I kind of be hesitant to use the other one just because of how many welds are on there.
At least the one good one we could use for a practice goal somewhere.
Right, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, or find some sort of.
So that is this packet.
How many more packets do you have over there?
Do you have a total for that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I do not for the whole packet. I can do that real quick. Sorry.
Which installation packet are you asking?
Well, I think installation, we don't need to weigh in on the installation, that can be dealt with.
Well, it's a difference of $1,000. Which one?
No, what I'm saying is that we don't have to have input on the installation, right? The administration and Mike should be able to,
So what are we moving? Are we moving a price that includes the extra $1,000 or not?
I think we're moving to buy the actual equipment, and then getting it installed can be however the administration deems is the most fiscally appropriate way to do it.
Okay.
That'd be like us weighing in on having a plumber come fix the.
So just for the equipment, it would be
Which
$8,923.56.
I'm sorry, say it again?
Yes, sir. $8,923.56.
That was without installation of the hoop?
Correct.
$23.56. Was there money left in the playground trust, or did
No.
we deplete that down to?
It's down to like $100.
I was gonna say, do we make nothing?
That was fully depleted. Okay. Just asking.
Can any of those be covered by the repair? Because it's replacement of equipment.
Not the facilities, though, you just
Yeah, it's
established your
outside.
equipment trust.
You're
In the
repairing
future, you
basketball
probably could
hoop.
use this for the equipment trust for this kind of thing if it happened in the future.
The equipment trust is not,
Yeah,
it's
very
not funded
good.
yet.
So, what was the number?
8356.
892-356. 356. I will move that we approve $8,923.56 for the purchase of athletic equipment.
Second.
Discussion. Any, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Opposed? No.
Can we,
You guys can figure out how to get it in the ground.
Yeah, thank you.
please don't call me. Because I'm gonna come if you call me, because that's what I'm gonna do.
You're off the
Your
list.
wife already put you on that. On your Google calendar, it's already there.
I don't know
Already
how
Vaughn
to.
told you.
At some point, we talked a month or so ago, 2 months ago, about a shed very briefly. If we're,
Based on the amount of stuff that's jammed into every corner of this building?
yeah, I mean, if you walk around, even if you look in the red shed down there, it is packed. Can we finish that conversation possibly, or try to have that conversation with more detail?
Do we want to do that now, or do we want to do that,
You want to make that part of the building committee?
talk about that under building committee?
Fine with that, but I mean, yeah, there's that, the second aspect of it is.
Why don't I add a note and we'll shed storage.
Brought that up at the beginning, we could have officially added it to the agenda.
Ooh, that was terribly painful to do. All right. Anything else from the principal?
You get you back, Ken, don't worry.
You good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
That was a long report, sorry.
Curriculum Review Board.
We did meet.
Exciting.
Yeah. there was a checkup on the different curriculum teams that are in process over the 7-year process of renewing and revisiting and potentially renewing the curriculum every year or every cycle. There's been a new idea proposed by the Curriculum Instruction Assessment Director, Chris Matika, about more clearly delineating the 7 years, the cycle itself, and more clearly assigning smaller steps that happen every year for a particular curriculum, like let's take the math curriculum or whatever, what kind of work can be gradually chipped away at it over the course of those 7 years so that when it gets to year 7 or the year 3 in the middle, that it's not an overwhelming amount of work that needs to be done. And so that it sounds like we're moving towards that kind of a design, and the various curriculum teams are discussing what that might look like. And it also sounds like Chris might take that model to the other districts in the SAU as well. So I think it sounds like we're the one school, I believe, that has a curriculum review board. And so I think we're starting out kind of hashing out this idea, but it's something that might make its way to the other districts in the SAU. So that's exciting work. And then there was the check-in, like I said, but then the bulk of the meeting was about actually just looking at the different assessments that are happening specifically in the ELA reading literacy curriculum, and the different benchmarking assessments, the different tests, the different kinds of assessments that are happening throughout the 8 years at the school. And it was a detailed discussion about how I think there was one that we talked about a fair amount, was the end of the year assessment where teachers were taking different reading samples. But it wasn't necessarily, which was a good data point to get to see where students were writing at the end of each year, because then you can target your instruction the following year, and it's an effective piece of information. However, it became clear that there were different kinds of information that were being recorded, and so was it actually as valuable as we thought it was? And essentially the discussion was about, are there ways of refining or targeting the kind of assessment that we're doing, both to reduce the amount of assessing and the amount of time spent doing that in the school year, but also to make what we do more effective and targeted and more beneficial to the teachers, essentially. So that took a bunch of our time, and we'll continue that conversation, I think, at our next meeting, which might be our last of the year, I think. Unless we add one more, which we do sometimes.
Sounds like a fun meeting.
It was a good time. All kinds of curriculum, yeah, right.
I think we hammered out some things, and it was a good discussion. I think we came to a final decision about the writing assessment that's going to work for the grade levels.
Okay. Building committee, which we are going to deal with in a much larger way in a couple of weeks. I have 2 notes on here. One of them is the CIP proposal, and the other one is shed storage. So, shall we start with? Do you have nothing to add except
No.
Okay. Do we want to talk about the structure first of what we're going to do next in 2 weeks? Or Patty had passed an agenda along earlier tonight, which is just basically public comments, and then get right into it.
Throw the ball around the room.
Right. So I think it would be useful for us to know if there are any resources we would like the administration to bring to the meeting that we can draw off of. This would be a good time to let them know. Like the blueprints, like the floor plan that you had done previously. The engineering study should be available.
The data.
And the space needs
What you have.
presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, well, engineering study, floor plans, and your presentation.
Demographic study.
In
Ken's
the
demographic
I
study.
think Kathy in the drive created a space needs folder and put all of this in it. So I will double check and make sure it's all there.
The printout though is going to be really.
I was gonna say, if we
Oh,
had
bring copies.
Yeah.
a
Gotcha.
little binder
Sure.
organized like we
Like
do our
binders.
budgets. Oh my God, it's so wonderful.
Yes, I have to admit, I'm a fan of that.
in the engineering study, is the site plan there, the setbacks and all that stuff from the wetlands and
No.
That was tucked into.
I think it is. I think it's part of
It
that
was given
document.
out at some point.
Yeah, because I'll go back
Seen
and
it.
yeah, I've seen it too. We'll see if
Copy in a super. Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But
Patty, there's a space
There's
needs.
a folder.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. That's all in there.
But basically, whatever the rules are, what are the setbacks, not even just the wetland, but also from the road and from the property lines and that kind of stuff.
We still need to figure, like, is this discussion, is it DCS with an elementary school and a middle school? Is it,
That is this discussion.
is
That
it an attached structure? Is it a detached structure? Is it,
I think what we had asked the administration to come with is a sense of needed educational space. Not defined, but just a sense of
Where you guys,
four classrooms or 4
12
teams?
building room,
Right.
or do you
What's-
need a 4 building room?
And you want us to discount the use of the modulars, correct?
Correct.
But even this new space, if we try to envision it, I don't necessarily want, I mean, maybe if it's the best thing, then sure, but are we gonna keep this building as it is? Not, I'm not saying gut everything, but the current purpose of this building, I would expect would potentially change. We're not just gonna add on, let's say, 4 new classrooms just to replace, I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
But rather than just asking the administration to say, what do you need now? Part of this discussion is re-envisioning how could we use the building as it currently is. Could we take 2 classrooms and open up a wall and turn it, that currently exists, and turn them into a STEM room or something like that? But then move those classrooms into this other room, or are we making a new whatever, STEM room or auditorium, I don't even know, I'm making stuff up. But this is a large, like this is like a philosophical discussion we're having here.
Yeah,
I'm so surprised that you got to that level.
I know. So you can't say in 2 weeks bring that stuff
No,
back. to us.
but what we can say is in 2 weeks, can you have a sense of how tight it is?
and, I mean, based on the numbers that Ken came out with,
We
we're,
need 50% more space.
We need,
But-
go.
I
Sorry,
think-
I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna
No,
get some water.
I just, I think we're putting the
Cart before the horse?
just a little bit, because before we can start talking about space and we're gonna make it out of concrete, we're gonna have
No, we're not.
drop ceilings.
We're nowhere near there.
Oh, but we've brought it up already. We're already talking about, we're gonna have a four room building and everything. We need to get from them what their vision is going forward for the district. And one of the things that during your presentation that I thought was great was the fact that you're starting to think, you're starting to have that vision of what, and you've incorporated with those 8 people that you took, that vision of what the middle school is going to be. Right? That's the impression I got. And that's what you're working towards, right? And I know we've talked about it before and we've mentioned it before, but we have 2 schools in this building. We have an elementary school and we have a middle school. And a preschool, so we have 3. So we need to figure out first, what are we going to do with those from a vision standpoint, and then we can start to talk about educational needs, because then we'll know what the educational needs are going to be for. Are we going to move the middle school, which I think is the way we're leaning, but I don't want to influence anything.
We're not leaning. We're not leaning. And we don't need to have this entire discussion now. We're gonna
No,
have
I
this
know.
in 2 weeks.
I'm just saying. Just we're asking for a bunch of physical information to be brought, but I'm not sure that we're there yet to need it.
so my thought in asking for some sort of guidance is you have to create an outline and then work within the outline. So I'm not saying it needs to be X, Y, or Z, just a sense of the sandbox that we're playing in.
Good way to put it. Good way to put it.
So, is there anything else anybody thinks that we would need at our meeting in 2 weeks, which we're not going to have now?
Because we're having it in.
They're trying.
It's gonna be a lot more than a 1 meeting.
It's a total pizza. Oh, here's what we should plan for. Pizza for the meeting.
Who's buying? Who's up?
I got the last one.
Is it?
Oh, yeah, she's not here. She's totally buying pizza. All right.
I'll text her right now.
Pizza.
It was a motion, you lost.
You are buying for everybody.
You lost the motion.
It's on video.
All right. Second on the discussion around building is the proposal from our eloquent friends at Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission in regards to completing the CIP for us for $5,000.
Move to approve.
Wait, back up. What?
They will do all of the work for us for $5,000.
So could we review what she said would happen?
If you'd like to.
Just to be clear with what this $5,000 will do. So it's 5 to 7 hours, which would include meetings with the facilities manager, the principal, and school board subcommittee to
Per
review
project.
to review the 10 projects, develop details, priorities, and timeline, research other facilities with similar recent improvements for cost estimates, review the engineering study, take photos, conceptual sketches, additional engineering and contracting needs for the projects. A multi-year approach.
Did that sound like 5 hours for $5,000?
5 to 7
$1,000?
hours.
I think it's
Per project.
Per project.
Which would
Now-
include.
So 50 to 70 hours.
Projects.
Right. The one thing that I will say is that
The 10 projects that we have, it was basically Nate and I spitballing. We were like, okay, here's the 10 things that we brought out of the engineering study that we think are relevant to the capital improvement plan because they're affected by growth. Do we want to game all those out? Which maybe we do. Maybe they're all useful things.
Yeah, we never really voted as a board that we even want these on. I mean, maybe before we do this and game out all 10 of them, maybe since we got from the last meeting, we want these to be 2 or 3 or 4 years out, maybe 6 years out. So which of those 10 really, we're not going to do all 10 in the next 6 years.
No, but
So maybe before we do this, we say, what are the top priorities, top 5 or 6, and those are the ones we ask her to work on, and not for $5,000, but for $3,000.
I guess my thought is with the CIP is you're trying to forecast out over the horizon.
Yeah.
And so to get out over the horizon, we may, you're saying, okay, what about the ones we're gonna do in 2 and 3 and 4 years? But we're still talking about 6 years because the whole purpose of the CIP is that every year something advances and you start adding into the backside of it and you're continuously advancing up a year, adding on the back end of it. And if they're done properly, you're always modifying, annually you're revisiting it and you're reviewing it. So what historically our town has done is they've created one to satisfy whatever need there was at the point.
Right.
And they've approved it, put it on a shelf, walked away from it for 15 years, and that's not the purpose of a CIP. So a true CIP is, yes, we want to look out 6 years because that's what we want to do on year 6, but we're going to talk about year 7 next year.
Sure.
So we need to be 6 years out, 7 years out.
Sure, but I maybe this is the point you're making, Jim, was that we just threw, I mean, it wasn't just random, but we haven't had this discussion as a board. It was sort of came from Jim and me, and so is this what the board feels like our priorities? We haven't really addressed that. We put some things out to kind of start the ball rolling, but we've never really talked about it as a board.
So I think maybe what we do is, I wholeheartedly think the best way for us to accomplish it is to have somebody who does it accomplish it. So do we take a very small chunk of time at the beginning of the next meeting, put the 10 projects on the table, decide if we're satisfied with them? That's going to be the meeting to tweak it if we decide we want to tweak it anyway, because we're going to be building stuff all night, and then have her get cracking on it.
I agree with Nate. I'm not fully on board with spending $5,000 for all 10 projects. I like your idea of putting them all out on a table, but I think we pick the top 5 or 6, and then next year we add on. We add on. Just like you were saying, next year when we revisit it, we're going to look at 7 years. So
why don't we?
I don't see them. I'm not really crazy about
Just
having her do all
throwing
10.
$5,000 in.
Yeah.
So why don't we say we are interested in engaging your services, but we are going to refine our list and then put on the agenda for next time CIP and put 15 minutes next to it. At which point we will confine ourselves to saying these are the things we want to do, and ask her if we can extrapolate from her $5,000 quote that it is roughly $500 per project.
Okay.
All right.
A couple of them we're going to start working on in 2 weeks. We're going to be doing one of them is about the addition that we're going to meet about in 2 weeks. So
I know. Okay. So we will chew on it. We're moving forward. Shed storage. So Zach, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I'm gonna scroll around for a second. So the first thing is, obviously, we need some additional just plain good old fashioned storage space. There's stuff stuffed in every corner and nook and cranny of this building. There is stuff that, is there, from the starting point, is there stuff we can just get rid of?
We have gotten rid of
Is there more stuff we
that
can get rid
shed
of?
out that you're referring to that's packed, that's been purged twice since the summer.
That has? There is a set
What did
of,
it look like
We just
before?
have
You
no
couldn't even get into
storage.
it, it's crazy.
there is a
Like,
set of,
I
for
was like
Micah,
climbing over stuff in the summertime trying to get to stuff.
Yeah, there are countertops from
From-
1985.
from my grandmother's house. They're supposed to look like butcher block. There is no need for those to be there anymore. The space they've taken up for the last 20 years is worth more than the cost to replace them if you ever need countertops. So purge more, in my own opinion, whatever. There's just stuff everywhere. We gotta get it organized and cleaned up and everything else. So I think we need, regardless of what we do with the building, we still need more space. If we're gonna add on to this campus, you're gonna need more maintenance space and more storage space regardless. So there's an immediate need for that. And I think it's time for us to seriously consider adding on some additional space, whether we do it as cold storage space or we do it as heated space. I mean, we're talking about additional equipment that's gonna be outside. The way to make those benches last longer is to pick them up in the fall and carry them inside and stick them in inside a building somewhere. So all that type of stuff, we should have a place for. So I think, there's an idea in here, Jim?
Well, it seems like the low-hanging fruit is, in terms of space needs, is first thing to deal with is things that don't need to be in the building. And to deal with that in terms of providing storage by providing proper storage outside of the structure. There's stuff under the stairs. There's stuff, you guys know this is an old story. Walked around with Mike last week because we were looking at that red shed just to see if it was possible for anything to be done there, like adding onto it or adding bays or increasing the footprint. It's too close to the pond and it's too close to the modulars. If we made any additions there, it would block in that back modular if we ever do get rid of the back modular, which Zach is under the impression that they're not going to trailer it out anyway, that it's going to come out in pieces, but
It's gonna be in the dumpster where we put those countertops in.
There was, and Mike proposed the area in the back of the school where there is an old deck and a picnic table next to the oil tanks. And with some reconfiguration in terms of where snow is put, there is roughly a 24 by 40 space there that you could put a storage shed that would accommodate pretty much everything that this school has currently. I imagine you guys will acquire more things. So I think it would be useful and smart as a first step in terms of dealing with space constrictions to get the things out of the building that don't need to be in the building and see what we have in terms of freeing up extra educational space or teacher lounge space or anything of the sort.
Egress in and out of the building. I mean, there's cleaning up stairwells and all those points of egress. They really should be,
Yeah,
They
we're
need-
not supposed to have it there.
they need to be empty, so we need a place.
So there is a rough estimate in your package on what something like that might cost. I am of the opinion that we should, as a first step, create storage for this building and look at putting out a proposal. Where'd it go? Oh, did it get printed out or no?
I have it, so you should.
Got it.
So what are the thoughts of the board on doing something like one big storage shed out back that accommodates something like that?
Thank you. So I think I said something similar last meeting, but that was about the paving the parking lot. we have no vision yet about what this addition that we're talking about is going to look like. Why not add some storage to the addition that we're talking about in the same breath?
Because storage is not built to the same standards as educational space. It's far less expensive.
Okay. Why is this the location that's going to be independent or not impacted by our discussion about the building?
There is no conceivable way for us to put a building anywhere near where this shed would go.
Is the shed allowed to be there?
That's, I guess, still part of the conversation to be determined, but to fit a footprint of 24 by 40 somewhere versus a footprint of 400 by 400,
Well, right,
entirely different set of circumstances.
but wetland zone is wetland zone.
That's, I guess,
So
part of the pursuing the process is determining if that is a truly a suitable location.
So what I think I would ask the board is the approval to go to the building inspector
And ask if it would be a suitable location, and what we would be up against if we did put a storage building back there, and then maybe move forward based on the recommendation of how big of a challenge is. It is not dealing with what the educational space is going to be going forward. It's removing the clutter so that you have a better picture of what your question, what your challenge is.
Sure, I just wouldn't want it to be impacting what our plan can be. I don't want to put something in now for this much money that's going to now constrain what we can do with this project that we're imagining.
I don't think we've never had any suggestions of putting anything back there.
No, and because of the wetland setback and ledge, I mean, there's a ton of ledge.
That's a rock pile.
Yeah, so
that is
it's a least desirable spot
It's a non-
to expand. And also, I think, just from the functionality of this building currently, it wouldn't work.
The other-
It's not a good way. It's not a good direction to go in.
That general area would put it close enough to the back of the building anyway, we've got 10 carts full of chairs scattered around the building. It's gonna make it so when you need the chairs, you walk outside, you roll right out one door, go 60 feet, roll them right in the back door, because the chairs, you might need 1 or 2 racks on a pretty regular basis, but you probably don't need the full
15 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know, for town meetings, concerts.
Yeah, I mean, and so you have spaces for that. There's tables, there's.
One other challenge, Nate, if you were thinking about if we would be eliminating potential space for an addition, is that for safety reasons, we have to have an access road that goes entirely around the structure. If we were going to go out that way and attach to the building, there's literally no room to build a road on the far side of it to go around. So
Septic things, that's not going to be going that way because of the pond.
no, right, and it would be nothing except electricity in it, basically.
Can we talk to various stakeholders such as teachers who might be trying to access the trails that way? Is that an access point where there is a trail that comes right there, if I'm imagining the same spot, and is that something that would be?
It's more of a cut through to get to the trail.
Oh, okay.
There are multiple ways to get to that trail.
Okay.
I mean, it's gonna be backed up against the ledge wall over there.
Right.
And then the current oil shed, or oil building, for lack of a better term.
It's currently fill. There's a retaining wall already built, so it's currently in fill. So it's not impacting anything that's existing at this point in terms of the space that we were looking at. So
We're not talking about this year's budget, I assume. We're talking about next year's budget after July.
It's a discussion to have.
So
I'm happy to move forward. I would need more information, but
So Zach said he was willing to go to the building inspector and talk through what was needed. Is the board okay moving ahead with that? All right, and then we will bring it back up and go from there.
this is just an initial write-up. This is not going out to bid or anything like that. We're not there yet, right?
No, we would actually go out to bid. If this is just a preliminary idea to give us an idea of what something like that would cost and provide. All right. You can leave if you want. Thank you for coming. Told you they go on forever. Did we buy a good basketball net? All right, good.
Yes.
Good.
Board goals.
Goals going forward. Can I open a window? Does anybody mind if I open a window? Okay.
That's my,
Yeah.
that's my agenda. There it is.
Dropping Christopher off in the mornings a lot lately. I've been having a vision of actually we should be running the traffic around the building that way, but don't know if
There isn't enough room. I've
that
looked.
corner, right? That corner's the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, if the modulars weren't there,
The monitors weren't there, you could potentially
you
put
could
like a,
potentially do it, but that corner would have to be cut back.
Yeah.
It'd just be a one way. You'd go around and.
I've stood out there and thought about that. I think,
The problem with that, you have all the kids going into the mud.
I guess,
I mean, if the
The
perfect
mod wasn't
synergy,
there.
if the mod
Would-
wasn't there.
would having, I'm sorry, I don't mean to squirrel, but
What
we're
we-
kind of sort of
what you are.
building squirrel,
Okay.
briefly building squirrel.
Yeah.
Would making the driveway wider so you could have two exiting lanes,
You should have a right turn only.
would that fix the problem? Because
Probably.
my understanding, at least from, or my observation is it bottlenecks there from people that are trying to turn left, they can't get out. So if you had a left-hand turning lane leaving, a right-hand turning lane, and one entrance lane
Onto the main road.
on the 43.
Oh, we're talking about that?
Yeah.
We are squirreling, but the easiest solution besides building an entire road is hiring a $10 an hour stop sign person that just lets the traffic out. And I love it when the cops sit there and don't get out of their car. And they're
And block the right-hand shoulder so
Do you
people.
have to be an officer to be able to do that?
You do?
Well,
To direct traffic?
there's liability, and we've tried that in Pembroke, and the police were absolutely against having any type of a civilian doing traffic control. We could talk to the police department here and see if they feel
Can I
differently.
talk to the chief about that and just see what his thoughts
See
are?
what he thinks.
I would love that because that's the easiest.
Everybody
solution.
okay with that?
That was, yeah. You
The
would
only
have
thing about widening down there, if you head on the south side of it, you've got to move telephone poles. You got to move power line poles because they come in on that side. You'd have to widen it on the north side.
We're gonna start with Jim's idea of holding a stop sign.
I like that idea too.
That's a good.
Yeah, this police department may feel differently about that.
Yeah.
I know
If
it was an
they
issue.
let us have somebody out there with a.
Would you need it just
Orange
morning
coat and stop sign.
or morning and afternoon? Is the problem just in the morning?
Afternoon is not too bad because we separate. There's always 2 or 3 groups for pickup, so we do an initial round where we get maybe like 40 cars,
Okay.
kids in the car. They leave,
Watch
and then
'em.
the next group comes up and pulls up.
It's like organizing traffic on an aircraft carrier, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And then the bus is leaving too.
But
So
the morning would be the time.
the morning is I mean, the morning causes. Yeah, the morning is causing
Headaches.
headache because when it backs up there, it backs all the way up, and then
Plus, not as many people are picking up in the afternoon because they're still at work.
I'll ask the chief what his thoughts are.
And I'm sure if he is amenable to somebody who is not a police officer doing it, that this board would be open to hiring that role.
Taking
or-
turns.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Not really nice.
All right.
Sorry.
Thank you for the squirrel. Goals going forward, Mr. Oxnard.
Yes, I asked to put this on here because a couple meetings ago we were talking about, in reviewing our goals for this year, we got to the section where it talks about preschool goals. And our conversation about that essentially got to the point where we, at our 30,000 foot level, shouldn't be making curricular goals for the school. That's more the school's job. And so then in that conversation, we talked about the idea of still that we, without having gone through some sort of a strategic planning process whereby we have a pulse on the feeling of the community, we, the elected members of the board, are representing the community's feelings about various things. And so I think as having our input on that as a way of representing the community, I think is valid. And so going forward, I was going to, I would like to make a motion about how we might revisit our goal planning, our goal making process this year. And I included that, I don't know if that was in your packet or not, but you got that? So I'm going to go ahead and we can talk about it or not, maybe I won't get any seconds, but my motion is that establishing the 2019 and 20 curriculum-related board goals, the board and the DCS administration will work collaboratively and in accordance with a mutually agreeable protocol. And further, the DCS building level annual goals for 2019 and 20 will be informed by the 2019-20 board goals.
I'll second that.
All right.
All right, so discussion.
I think this is a
Mr. Oxnard.
Thanks. So, yeah, I just think they would be great to try it for a year and to see whether we can do this collaboratively. And I just thought setting up some sort of a protocol might be a good step now, while we're still 2 or 3 months away, that we could maybe agree on some sort of a process where we could. I mean, I agree. I don't want to be micromanaging, but at least I want to have some input. Not me, but as a community. How does the town get the community's input on? How does the school get the community's input on where?
Is a year long enough to get a sense because of the you're not the curriculum review board's not, it meets every other month. I'm just wondering if you might want to stretch that out so you get better data.
I threw that as just trying to figure see how it worked and revisit it afterwards.
The motion itself, there's proposed goals underneath the motion.
It was more of like a protocol that I might, if we adopt the motion, then what would the protocol be? That was just a draft or proposal for how we would set up this process.
Do we want to talk more about being in alignment with the board goals rather than being informed by the board goals? Or does that change the focus of your motion?
Does aligning, do you mean that they would be the same as? Or
No,
they
that they'd be working towards the same goals, like the same direction, rather than we are informing them, you will do this.
Okay.
We will come together collaboratively and align our interests in a general direction.
Well, we talked about, the board's goals, the district goals. There's certain goals that certain things the board really needs to kind of tackle kind of head on, and there's things that really the board can kind of say, this is, a general thought. This is focused basically on curriculum, right? So, I mean, at least the way you have it written here, this is
Right,
curriculum
that's what I
related.
proposed.
This isn't, the whole all-encompassing. But from a curriculum standpoint, I think I want the feedback from administration for curriculum-related goals, but I think it is good for us to at least have that certain level of input from what we're getting, and then we work together. So the protocol that's laid out is from a curriculum standpoint, I think is nice. Obviously, I weigh more heavily on the administration's input, but we all need to kind of hash it out and then get behind it and push.
So,
Well, to your point, Jim, about the wording, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting this, but when we're saying that the building level goals will be informed by the board goals, we're saying that we're going to set using this protocol or something similar to it. We're going to set the board goals, and then we're going to hand it over to them and let them, as part of their goals, figure out how to do it.
Right.
So my concern with that is I am not a curriculum expert.
Right.
You are. He's not. Gigi is. I would feel remiss to a certain degree for me to be sitting there saying, this is your curriculum, go do something.
But in that,
I guess I wasn't trying to imply that with the
No, so I just want to, right.
but the protocol includes that piece. Representatives, it says in step 2, representatives from the administration will attend the goal-setting meeting and have supporting.
So can
supporting
I ask the administration to join this in terms of, since we want to be collaborative on this? Could I ask the
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Please
can I
weigh
ask a
in.
question?
Yes.
Sorry, I was thinking about this. So the school board approves the curriculum. There's a CRB and there's a rotation schedule for that. I'm just trying to think about what curricular goals would be on a yearly basis, and I'm trying to think long-term, that we know where the direction the curriculum is heading, but what could you give me an example of what a 1 year curricular goal would be?
Yeah, let me pull up. Do you have this year's board
Yep.
goals? Let me go and see if I can pull that up here quickly. Because that was where I feel like that's where that came from. This
Are you
discussion
talking about like the math program, monitoring the math program
right?
in the
That
fifth grade,
yes,
and then
yes.
that didn't happen?
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where we were out and left, or I don't know, but we had this idea, like I said, kind of representing the community. I thought, but then it was not shared by the administration. So yeah, that's the kind of example that I would be talking about.
Previous.
Right, it was previous. Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I guess it sounded like, you bring yours, we bring ours, and then we try to hash it out. And I'm wondering, that would mean that it would be coming from Brian and Kristen. There would be no teachers there. It would be due in the middle of when school is ending.
Right.
And I'm just trying to think logistically how think through on how it would all come
Right.
together.
Yep, that's a good point.
And they
Yeah, I think,
certainly
looking at
will.
the end of it, so much is happening at the end of the year to kind of bring this, it's kind of everything bottlenecks in
So when do you typically set your goals?
the summer.
In the summer. And so our goals aren't really usually solidified until August or September. So to me, I guess that's what I'm talking about. You're setting your goals that are based on, I think, what currently is in front of you, and that's what your biggest issue is. But I feel like we're here having these 6-year, 10-year conversations about what's going to be happening down the road.
You want to align things, basically. I mean, really,
Yes.
we want to align it.
Yes, that's my goal. So I don't want to be setting the goals for the school, but I want more alignment, is what I'm trying to say.
Right,
Thank
so
you.
that we're
That's a
all
good way of saying
pushing in the same direction, pulling on the same rope.
So I think the timing of this process doesn't work with what is existing protocol. Right now, we've kind of reinstituted a July meeting where we get together and kind of brainstorm and talk about what our goals for the coming year will be. But then we don't really address that again or finalize it until August or September.
And we don't review it again until January or.
So is it vision-wise more like we'd like to see where the administration is coming from, and then provide guidance based on where we think the long-term plan is? So
But I also think they should have some input from us. Again, I think my point is that we do represent, there's little chance for the administration, I think, to get, without a strategic plan, that is the process by which, at least as far as I'm aware, that the administration gets solid input from the community as to what the values of the town are, blah, blah, blah. And so here we are. How do we provide input to this process?
So do we make that July meeting strictly about our guidance to the administration at a 50,000-foot level, and then let you guys loose, and then get feedback in August, where you guys come back and say, based on what we discussed, here's what we're thinking? Does that work with this kind of a vision? Does that work with the administration? We don't want. I don't think what we don't want to do here is impose an entirely new system. We want to align systems.
I don't want to add a lot of work in June when it's already crazy.
Right.
Do you have a team that gets together in the summer to do school goals, or is it more you and Kristen working on it and then presenting it at the beginning of the year?
So column A and B, we're working with our specialists and it's kind of both.
So
We talk, we sit, we look at the past year and we look at where we're going, and then obviously we bring in our specialists who are in the trenches every day and know what's going on. So,
Not that we don't know what's going on.
So if our July meeting, if we ask you guys to both be at our July meeting where we talk about kind of what we see going forward and provide you with kind of a sense of where the board is and the concerns that are brought from the community to the board, and then is that far enough after the end of the year and far enough before you get into the meat and potatoes of your planning to guide to provide a guidance in terms of alignment.
So, I mean, when you're looking at it in July, are we,
We've been meeting early in July.
Like the first. Are you guys all on vacation?
I'll certainly be here. But I was looking at the goals that we have put in place for this year, and they do align with, competencies and continuing the QPA work, developing the habits of learning and responsive classroom and social emotional learning, and analyzing data, examining and analyzing data and using it to drive our instruction for students. So I think those are broad enough that you guys could fit in there. We could fit our goals into your 50,000 foot view or 30,000. Are you at 50 now?
We're all over the
Climbing,
place.
huh? You are climbing.
We're like a
That's
hot air
trust.
balloon. We go up and down.
So I don't think there's anything there that we couldn't align with what your visions are.
Okay, so I guess the question is, I think in particular is this grew out of not wanting to see a situation where we had a goal on a stated goal that wound up just getting ignored.
By the past administration.
We know that.
Making that perfectly clear for the camera.
Curricular related,
Yes.
I mean, it was just in.
So what is does doing something like where we that July session is maybe we're talking about where we would like to see the school go in terms of our feedback, and then we can talk about our individual board goals in August. So the July meeting becomes just strictly about.
A few years back, we had that meeting where we just, it was the
swap lady.
The swap lady.
The consultant we brought in. Yeah.
No, well, no, there was that, but the other one is, we just had that breakfast meeting where we just sat down and we just talked for.
We've had a couple of those.
Honestly, maybe that's, I feel like that's a good July meeting, right? It's like, okay, so here's the start of the school year, here's the conversation. We're not passing on anything hard, but this is what we see, this is what we think, this is kind of our hopes, goals.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about, is that we restrict that meeting to our passing along our hopes and goals for where we would like the administration to hear us for the year coming, and we ignore, we're going to add on to the building, we're, all of the things that we're going to do that are tangible, that are outside of the administration. That we just focus that meeting entirely on a discussion around coming to a holistic approach of where we see the school going, so everybody on the same page and we're all happy.
Sure.
Does that make sense? So we have a motion. I would.
I mean, I think that's.
No, I don't think it's a bad motion. I think it actually is a useful motion. I would change informed to aligned. That we would,
Aligned with instead of informed by.
Yeah. So that's a sub motion within a motion. So I need a second on that.
Second that.
Okay. So is everybody okay with changing that to aligned with? Yes. Yes. Okay. Now we're back on the main motion. That was so formal.
Very impressive. Good job.
Thank you. I know. Does this language convey what we were just discussing? Okay.
You want to take a 5-minute recess? Because this was Nate's motion to start.
Yeah. Everybody okay? Yeah. All right. At 8:03, we are taking a 5-minute recess. Starting again.
We're on.
All right. So we have a motion where we've changed the last line to say we'll be aligned with the 2019-20 board goals. Do we need to change any more of this language, or do we all feel that we're in a good place? It's not defining anything. It's just saying that we will come to a mutually agreed upon protocol.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Candy?
I drew on it too. So there we go.
Okay,
We're into policies.
we are.
Exciting. Employee-student relations, third reading. EBB.
I think the one I saw was one that I put in there. Is that?
Yep.
Okay. So what I did was I took the lawyer's language and went over the one that I had initially posted and just made sure that they were consistent. I think that the primary difference was that I tried to put in a couple circumstances where one of those rules, would not necessarily be, or would be going too far, and so I put a couple examples in there, but that's, I think, really the only difference.
So the one that's titled GBEBB draft is yours?
Yes.
Is that right? The draft number 2?
That says draft.
Okay. That's probably the new one.
Okay.
Let me see what it says.
So
Yeah, that's the new one.
Because I read it and I liked it.
So
I didn't know if it was your final.
Can we ask if Brian and Kristen had a chance to
Yeah.
review
Yeah,
it
you
too?
guys were going to take a look at this too.
The one that's in the drive.
Number 6 is written well enough. Yay. Okay. All right. Any additional changes to what Nate has written?
So I will move to approve the EBB as written.
A second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next is the JCA New Hampshire School Board Association sample language as compared to ours, which we had the discussion last time around how we may have created a fulfilling challenge here by including forms and
I was going to say that
Significantly longer.
I'm going to move.
ours is significantly longer than the sample, so.
I'm going to move that we replace it with the school board suggested one.
Okay. So I'll second for discussion.
All right.
Do you have something to say?
I would love to hear what you have to say.
I just want to get it out so we can talk about it. So I'll let you go.
The only thing that I haven't done, when you had talked initially about bringing this back and talking about the way it's structured now, we were going to consult the attorney. We haven't done that yet, so I would just request that if you want to incorporate, if you want to use the sample instead, I would like to send him the sample and make sure there's nothing missing that he feels is important to include. And he was prepared to answer any questions you had, if you were going to keep your policy and make some changes. But
So
I can send him the sample.
how does this change the processing for you? Clean it up? I mean, it's
Well, I think an unintended consequence with this policy was making a form, because it suggests that, hey, I can go someplace else, I just have to fill out this form and get it in by December 15th. It was suggested that we do this because there was a comment about, there'll be a procedure for requesting a reassignment. So I think it may be more open of submit a letter, not, hey, we have this form if you want to go to a different school.
I felt like the one that is currently in place it lays out very clearly how you go about switching schools. Like, here it is, come on and do it, and it's an invitation. And I think that it's with the suggested language from the school board. NHSBA, it's implied, it's in there. If you need to switch your school, you can switch your school. Here's the way to do it, but it's not like inviting everybody to come and switch your school.
It doesn't change the qualifications at all.
right.
And it doesn't. And it also I think it puts it on I think one other difference is that there was, in the process, it talked about a committee at the DCS has a committee meet and decide this stuff, where I think it should just go to you, like we were talking about at the last meeting. I don't know that it should.
On part 6, or B part 6, I didn't have a chance to check. Was it 5 or was it 10% was our commitment to Concord? Or was it 95 or 90% was our commitment
I
to
think
Concord?
it's 10 now in the
Yeah,
revision.
initially it was 5%, and in the renegotiation, I think it was dropped to 10.
So I would want to just make sure we've aligned that to the whatever.
Well, we shouldn't, because the law is 5, but we've negotiated 10.
Okay.
So you wouldn't want to put 10 in here because
So we don't want that
it's
to
only
reflect the
5
actual
by law.
of
Right.
our contract.
Right.
So how did we do that with our contract?
There was the
Because
will.
it's an agreement.
Yeah. Of
It's mutually agreeable.
the parties that there could be more flexibility.
If we dropped it to 10 in the policy, we're
Inviting.
we're tying our hands on that.
So we have a motion and a second. I would entertain tabling it until it's been reviewed by legal. Till the next meeting.
We need to rescind the motions, or?
No, you can just table it.
Okay.
All in
Thank you.
favor of tabling?
KCD.
KCD.
So the conversation at the last meeting or the meeting before was that there was a pretty low threshold for staff being able to apply for grants. So at your suggestion, I think we put in $25,000.
Stayed the same?
I believe so.
Does that feel like a reasonable number? Seems like 25,000, you're starting to get into big stuff we should know about.
I move to approve KCD as amended.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye.
I know the agenda is different than the policy, but the policy
Is KCD, okay.
It's just a
Sorry, I
typo.
just caught one.
Yep.
Informational items, LED.
So I spoke with Dan from Eagle, and they have completed the summary. He gave me a real, he's gonna produce more of an executive summary. He's able to come talk to the board. But basically, if we were to do an LED conversion, we'd be looking at about a 3-year payback on the cost, with an annual savings somewhere around 17 to 20,000 a year.
And electrical costs.
And electrical and maintenance costs, so a pretty substantial savings. He has, the information he has will include a whole bunch of other data, but basically, I think what we really need to decide as a board is if we want to, chase this project further down the road or not. This would probably be, this is a project that we had listed for the facilities repair. And I think we would see a pretty rapid payback.
3 years is pretty quick.
So the outlay is around 60,000?
Yeah, if you take everything into consideration. There's some grant money that we would qualify for that is offsetting the initial cost to bring it down to that say 60-ish range.
Could you use trust money for it? Was that a building improvement?
That would be building improvement.
Repair and repair.
That was on the
Facilities
list.
repair.
That was on the list for facilities repair. I think we had LED on that list, and that's.
I think it would be, given the cost, it's probably wise to bring that to the next meeting so that when we map everything out, because if you take your top 5 projects, you then have to fund the trust each year, and you will get to the point where you say, okay, we cannot fund all 5 of these over 6. You'll start moving things around. So that 60,000 you'd want that in the mix, approximately 60. And to determine whether you're going to move forward and how quickly.
Right, I think Zach was talking about, we had talked around that from the engineering plan for the existing money that we have approved for trust funds for this year, because we had 300.
Did we have enough to cover this too?
In the facilities repair and improvement, we have plenty of money. I mean, we
300.
already have enough.
But we spent,
Yeah, did we have enough in the 150 allotment?
Yeah, because we've only spent about 50 out of that 150, so there should be about 100 that isn't been used on top of the 180 to 200 we were already carrying. So we have an ample fund to support doing that project.
Voters want us to spend it.
If
Yeah.
that was, if that remains your priority, then that absolutely makes sense. I didn't know if you wanted to put like all of it on the table and see if that's still
I think,
immediate.
I mean, if you extend out beyond the 3 years, it's a savings for the community.
Right, every year after
every
the
year,
three, it's
you know,
gone.
perpetually,
Yeah.
with no maintenance costs and better light and brighter light and improved lighting in the gym.
there's a phone app, you can adjust the lights in each room.
So you can mess with people.
No, you don't give that to everybody.
Yeah, don't give it to Brian. He's clearly.
Who's messing with Cindy?
We did our buildings recently at work, and nobody gets the app.
No?
Nobody gets the app.
The only thing that would be worse would be the thermostat app to adjust the heat in every room. Oh, God, the battles that would come out of that.
So the question is, do we want to have a public hearing at our next meeting to go after something like this, or we would have to go out to bid?
Yeah,
Right. Do we want to go to bid?
yeah, so I mean, we can,
We can go to bid and
yeah,
then.
part of that request in the funding for this was to help prepare an RFP as far as a,
Do we need to see the scope of work first before we? send this?
we would prepare the scope of work and then have that final
Okay. So
conversation.
can the whole thing be done before June 30th? If we're not starting with the RFP until the beginning of May?
We can put it, I mean, if we put a turnaround, well, it doesn't have to be done by June 30th because we're spending trust fund money, it just has to be done over the summer.
Yep.
We don't want to be doing this when the school's in session,
Right.
obviously, but it needs to be done over the summer. But, I mean, we can put a 10-day window on the bid or a 2-week window on the bid and try to
So
just.
do we want to move forward with drawing up a scope of work and going to an RFP for this?
I think so.
Okay. So I need a motion.
I move that we proceed with producing a bid for a LED conversion on the building.
Using the,
That's fine. Doesn't.
I was gonna say the scope of work that's already been produced first.
Yeah.
I'll second.
You get that to us.
Need a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Will you give us a hand with that?
Yes.
All
Oh.
Well, obviously you'll give us a
I
hand.
will. Well, yes, I will.
I will,
Whatever work you've got back, that we can put that together. Any other informational items? No? Okay.
I know that one.
Public comments?
I have a public comment.
Candy?
Just very, very quick. I walked into Hannaford's in Raymond, and we get to see, like tonight, students that we know we should know, but they're very tall now, and they're juniors and seniors in high school. And this young lady who was bagging my groceries, I just said to her, "You look great. What are you up to?" And she says, "I'm taking diesel mechanics at Concord High and love it. And I have an internship at Crotone." So I thought I would pass that on to you.
Good for her.
I'm trying to figure out who I was talking to. And also Tricia's saying Max Lambert. There's an article in the Concord Monitor saying the type of thing he's doing. He's a senior, but he's doing college courses at the same time, also doing an internship for with mechanics. It was in the Concord Monitor, so another DCS student.
Give him my number, give them my number.
Yeah.
We can't find diesel mechanics.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say it was,
That said he'll fill one of 400 open
nice.
jobs in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I will say that it was super nice to hear from the Concord High kids and to also see them come back.
Yeah.
I'm excited that it seems like they're willing to keep going. So, excellent. Any other public comments? Non-public per NHRSA 91-A:3, 2, are we C?
We are A and C.
A and C, I would entertain a motion to go into non-public.
So move.
Second.
Nate?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Jim, yes. Ken?
Yep.
8:20, we are going into non-public, and I will take it. We are out of non-public at 9:15.
Move to seal the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to approve the 2 leave requests.
All in favor? Second.
Second.
All in favor?
I move to approve the 2 resignations.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I move to approve the 1 retirement.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 9:17.